Hi, I'm John Stevenson, and we're going to be looking at Octavius Augustus in our continuing study of the history of civilization. We left off last time on the Ides of March, where Julius Caesar was assassinated in the Senate by a conspiracy of senators, and this is going to lead to a power vacuum. Now, the consul at this time is Marcus Antonius. He initially has to hide because they want to put him to death too, but then the time passes and it's time to bury Caesar, and Mark Antony asks permission for and receives permission to read Caesar's will. That will gives his private gardens to the city of Rome so that everybody might enjoy them. It gives money to every Roman citizen living in the city of Rome. And that turns the hearts of the people from seeing Caesar as a bad person who needed to be assassinated to making him extremely popular, especially now that he's dead. He's not going to become king now. And his will also calls for his nephew, Octavius, to be adopted. Now, Octavius, like I said, was his nephew living in Greece. He was just a teenager, maybe 18, 19 years old, and he'd been studying in Greece, and he hears this news that he has been adopted. He is heir to the famous Julius Caesar. In fact, his name is now going to be changed. We're going to continue to call him Octavius, but actually the name he's going to take now will be Gaius Julius Caesar, but that would be a little bit too confusing for us, so I'm going to continue to call him Octavius. And Octavius returns to Rome in order to collect his inheritance. However, meanwhile, Mark Antony has the checkbook. Mark Antony has been spending Caesar's money. Octavius shows up and says, "I'm here to get my inheritance." And Mark Antony says, "Well, that's all well and good. Be on your way. I'll give you a little inheritance. I'll give you a little allowance. But don't bother me, kid." And so Octavius goes down the street to the Senate, and he walks into the Senate and he says, "I'm here to give all that money to the people that Caesar's will had mandated." And by the way, Octavius has the checkbook, so just see him for your money. And that puts Mark Antony on the on the spot. And eventually, this is going to lead to conflict. Now, Octavius is sent to fight against Mark Antony by the Senate. And Mark Antony they're ready to fight, and Octavius gets down there to see Mark Antony, and he says, "I don't really want to fight you. You served my adopted father, and instead let's enter into an agreement." And so you have a second triumvirate. Now this one's going to be way out in the open between Octavius and Mark Antony, and also there'll be a third party to that, Lepidus. So that in the second triumvirate, we have Octavius. He's going to be in Rome. Meanwhile, Mark Antony will move to the east, and he will be in charge of the Eastern Empire, Greece, Anatolia, and of course also Egypt, which has its own queen, Cleopatra. We don't forget her. And Lepidus, he's going to get North Africa. We're not going to hear too much from him. He's not really going to be that significant to our story. But they had reckoned without Cleopatra in Egypt. And Cleopatra now gets in her ship, actually arranges what you could almost call an ancient cruise ship. It is grand, it is glorious, it is full of fun and delight, and she sails to meet Mark Antony, and she basically sweeps him off his feet so that he becomes enamored with Cleopatra, and they marry. Now he's already got a wife back in Italy. Indeed, his wife is the sister of Octavius, and that's going to serve to break up this, taking another wife, and Romans didn't take another wife, and that other wife, Cleopatra's marriage to Antony, will not be recognized by Rome. That will be in their eyes an illegal marriage. But she sweeps him off his feet, and they have several children, and he's already arranging that those children will be heirs, and that they will receive places like Syria and maybe Judea and other places, and he's basically giving away the entire Eastern Roman Empire to her. So that now, with Octavius's backing, the Senate is going to declare war not on Antony, but on Cleopatra. So, and of course, Antony's going to be on her side because he's been swept off of his feet. But they're saying, we're going to declare war on Cleopatra because she's trying to steal the eastern half of the Roman Empire, and there's some truth to that. This war will finally have its epic battle at the naval battle of Actium off the coast of Greece, and Antony will be leading the forces. With Cleopatra will actually be leading the Egyptian navy as well. She'll be there in the battle. And Octavius, although he's there, he knows that he's not a military commander. And so he gets his best friend, who is a military commander, Agrippa, will lead the Roman forces. And it's Roman against Roman, although technically it's Roman against Egypt. And Cleopatra, halfway through the battle, bails out, and Antony sees her running away, and my love is running away, I have to go join her. And he abandons the battle, even though it's not completed yet. And so the battle is left to Agrippa and Octavius. Remember, he's technically in charge, but he knows he's no general or no commander. And so he's leaving it in the hands of people that he has chosen, like Agrippa, and now he has won the empire. And so Cleopatra and Antony, they return back to Egypt, where both of them eventually commit suicide, and Octavius comes and tries to capture them, but they commit suicide, and that has left Octavius now in charge of all of Rome. But you remember that Julius Caesar had been in charge of all of Rome, and he had been assassinated. And so Octavius he's not going to have the same hubris, the same arrogance that Caesar has. He wants to be in charge too, but he's going to also exercise a great deal of something Caesar didn't have, and that is prudence. And so Caesar will come to Rome, Octavius is going to come to Rome, and he's going to say, I don't want to be king, I want to just be the Principus. I want to be the sort of the first citizen. I'm going to advise the Senate, but the Senate's going to make all the decisions. Of course, I'm going to advise them and tell them what they have to do. And so Octavius eventually will be given the title Augustus, but that's not a political title. It's a religious title, the august one, the one that we revere. And certainly he wants the Senate to listen to his advice, and he's going to be ruling. And this is going to institute the period of Pax Romana, the peace of Rome, in which you have had in the past that period of one civil war after another, both with Sulla and with Caesar and Pompey and all. But now there's going to be peace on the inside of Rome, and there will be a certain measure of peace on the outside of Rome as well, because Octavius is going to say, yes, we have borders in the north, like the Rhine and the Danube, and we're not going to try to go past those places. Or in the east, like the Euphrates River, we're not going to go past those areas. We're going to have peace both within, and even as much as we're able to, peace without as well. There will be tax reform at this point, and a stabilization of the Roman economy, which had been all out of kilter prior to this. And there's going to be the system of Roman roads that are built, works projects and roads projects, which unite the empire. Indeed, it will be said of Octavius, he will say, I found Rome brick, I left her marble, and thus it institutes a great period of Roman prosperity as Rome is built up into the capital of the world. Now, it's interesting to note that it's during this time, during the reign of Octavius, sometimes we can call him Augustus because that's the title he's given, that we have during his period a baby being born in the east the birth of Jesus takes place. And the book of Luke tells us that the angels show up after the birth of Jesus, and they say to the shepherds, don't be afraid, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which will be to all the people. For today in the city of David there has been born for you a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. And when we read that in the Gospel of Luke, I think perhaps we are meant to be reminded, because there's words there that are catchphrases that had already been used of Octavius Augustus. Because Octavius Augustus, his birth had been described as good news. The Greek word there is euangelion. And he had been described as being the Savior of Rome and bringing in the Roman peace, the Pax Romana. And he is described as being Lord of all. And he even takes for himself the title Son of God. So that as we come to the story of Jesus, he is really the better Savior, the one who brings a better peace. He is truly the Lord of all.